All right, good morning, grade 6, or afternoon for those people who slept in. Today's class, we're going to go over two things. The first thing we're going to go over is the morning math, the checkup, right, on our comparing and ordering of fractions. Okay, so in this, this was the last morning math you had right before you left. We didn't have enough time to actually go over it. I created an assignment. In that assignment, you will have access to this document. It is not due, but for those people who were not here, so there's about 7 people between both classes, you should probably take a look through this and read through it and learn it, because it will be on the final, right? So we're gonna go over this. Everyone got a copy of their own test back. I sent it to you. I sent it out individually. You should be looking over it. If you can't print it, then you should be making corrections on paper. If you can print it, you should be making corrections. And almost everyone here should be making corrections. All right, so just starting off, all right, comparing and ordering fractions. Question 1, we notice it's out of 4 marks. Something that we're still not really paying attention to is how many marks there is, because that's gonna tell us what we need to have down. All right, find equivalent fractions so that the fractions in each pair have the same denominator. When possible, simplify. Then compare the fractions using a greater than or equals sign. All right, so you have 2 fractions. You have 6/8 and you have 3/4, all right, or 3/4. So what we have to do is we need to, first of all, each pair have the same denominator. All right, we cannot compare fractions unless the denominators are the same. Now, some of you might be able to look at that and you can know, right? But we need to have the same denominator. What a lot of people did was say, well, 8 and 4, all right, I times this by 2, right? If you times the denominator by 2, you also have to times the numerator by 2, all right? So that's going to become 6 and 8. So now 6 and 8, you have two fractions, 6 and 8 and 6/8. You should know that these are going to be equal. But now, so that would be 1 mark, right? So if I'm marking this, that's a check mark. But we also, almost none of us simplified. All right, we can simplify these 2 fractions. Instead of multiplying by 2, we can divide this number by 2. All right, so that's going to become 3/4. So 3/4 is equal to 3/4. So a lot of people, when they divided this side by 2, they also divided this side by 2. In your head, you should be wondering, just looking at that 3/4, why can I not divide that by 2? You can divide the bottom by 2, absolutely, but you cannot divide 3 by 2. 3 divided by 2 would be 1.5, and unless it's going to equal a whole number, you cannot divide it by 2, right? All right, so this would be 1 mark, this would be your other mark. Next one, you have 16/10 and 9/5. Once again, you have to do the exact same thing. You need to have this denominator be the same, all right? So what you have to do is you have to think about the relationship between 5 and 10. Can 5 go into 10? And it can, right? 5 goes into 10 2 times, so we could times that by 2. And that's going to be 18/10. Well, 18/10 is greater than 16 because 18 is bigger than 16, so it's going to be greater than. But once again, we need to simplify. So instead of timesing by 2, you should have divided by 2. Right? And that's going to give you 8/5 and 9/5. Once again, 9/5 is the bigger number. Okay? Moving on to question 2. Now this one was the one that I was the most disappointed in, and I think the one we struggled the most in. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to order the following fractions. If these are the fractions you're given, these are the numbers that you have to have on your final labeling, right? Or not labeling, on your final ordering, all right? Show and label your pieces. So when I say pieces, what that means is you have to divide this fraction, this number bar, fraction line, into pieces. From 0 to 1, you have to decide what are you going to break this into. Remember, we talked about this. This is in the last video. Maybe you can either draw multiple number lines, you can do the lowest common denominator, or you can do benchmark. Right? It doesn't really matter which one you do, as long as you are labeling your pieces. Okay? If you do benchmark, it's important that you actually compare. Okay? What that means is you compare these fractions to your label. All right? So we're going to break this up. We're looking at this. We have 6, 9, 3, 4, 6, 3, 4, and 9. All right? If you're going to do the lowest common denominator method, then you're going to have to make them all into improper fractions. Right? Benchmark, you want them to be all mixed. Either way, you need to pick early on what you're going to do. I'm going to do benchmark. So remember, benchmark, what that means is you're going to figure out where they fall between your two sets of holes. Okay, so 5, 6. So first you're going to do is you're going to label this. All right. So I'm going to find where is half between 0 and 1, which is going to be right here. Right. Where is the half between 1 and 2, which is right over here. Okay. Now we're going to go through this. 5 over 6. So we have 5 over 6. We should know by grade 6 that if you have 5 things out of 6, you do not have a whole. So it has to be less than 1, right? 6 out of 6, if you have 6 pop cans out of a 6-pack of pop cans, or you have a pack of gum, or you have whatever you have, if you buy it and there's 6 in them, if you buy a small pizza and it comes in 6 slices, and they only give you 5 slices of pizza, you should know that you don't have a whole pizza. All right? If it is a fraction where the numerator is less than the denominator, it has to fall between these two numbers. With our benchmarks, we're going to determine where exactly does it fall. Does it fall between here or here? So we have to say, is it greater than or less than 1/2? Right? In order to do that, you need to find a common denominator. You're going to times by 3 times by 3. 3 over 6. So we know 5 over 6 is greater than 3 over 6. So we're going to put 5 over 6. Right? 5 over 6 is really close to 1 whole. Right? So we're going to put it, let's say, right here. 5 over 6. This on the bottom, this is what I meant by labeling your pieces. Right? I've labeled 1/2 in both section, and now this is where I'm ordering it. Notice how I'm ordering it on the top, labeling it on the bottom. Okay? We're going to keep moving on. Right? So in benchmark, we need this to be mixed. Right, we do our math, we find out this is 1 and 3 over 6. 1 and 3 over 6, so 1 and 3 over 6. All right, it has a 1 in front. That means it already has 1 whole. The moment you know that it already has 1 whole, it has to be greater than 1 whole. Because it's 1 entire pizza and 3 out of 6 slices. Right, so is 1 and 3 out of 6. Where is it going to fall? Is it greater than 1/2 or less than? So 3 out of 6, looking back at this, we know 3 out of 6 is half, right? So we should determine that 1 and 3/6 is going to be perfectly half. Okay, so we got 2 down. 1 and 2/3. Okay, 1 and 2/3. So what we're going to do now is we know with that 1, we know it should fall between 1 and 2 because it's 1 plus 2/3. Right, so we have our 1, and we're going to find 2/3. What we have to know is 2/3 greater than or less than 3/6? Sorry, you can't see that. So you have 2/3, you have 3 over 6. All right, the reason why we're using 3 over 6 is because we know that's half. We're going to multiply 2/3 by 2, so it gets a common denominator. That is 4 over 6. 4 over 6, right, is greater than 3 over 6. So 1 and 2/3 has to be greater than 1 and 3 over 6. We're going to put it right about here. This will be 1 and 2 over 3. Okay? 3/4. This is our next one. 3/4. Okay? There is no 1 in front of that. That is not a complete pizza. That is not a complete Kit Kat bar. If I give you 3 out of 4 pieces of a Kit Kat bar, you got gypped if you paid full price for that. Okay? So 3 out of 4. We know that 3 out of 4 falls between here. Once again, we're going to see is 3 out of 4 greater than or less than half, right? Well, 3 out of 4 is greater than half. We know that because of common denominators. Equals 2 out of 4. 3 out of 4 is greater than 2 out of 4. Next, you're going to compare it to 5 over 6. 3 over 4 or 5 over 6. Right? Find yourself some room. 3 out of 4, 5 over 6. Okay? If you find a common denominator, and this is an easy way to find a common denominator, times it by itself. Right? This is going to equal 20 over 24 and 18 over 24. Right? 20 over 24 is greater, which means 3 out of 4 is less than 5, 6, but greater than 1/2. 3 out of 4 should fall right here. Okay? Our last one, 1 and 1/9. It has that 1. The moment it has a 1, it has to be greater than everything else, right? It has to fall in here because it starts at 1. It starts at 1 because it has that 1. And all we have to do is, once again, compare it to 3 over 6. So we have 3 over 6. We have 1 over 9. What's going to be bigger? You multiply it by 6. Multiply it by 9. Remember, this is one thing people struggle with. What you do to the top, you make sure you do to the bottom. This is going to be 6 over 36. Oh, not 36. That's bad math, Mr. Callum. Over 72. And this is going to be 18 over 72. 54. 54. Either way, this is 6 on the top, this is 18. 3 over 6 is bigger, which means we know 1 and 1 over 9 is going to fall here. What you should have at the end of this then is a labeled section, right? And you should have clearly on this side, right? Over towards the 1/2 should be 3/4, 5, 6, 1 and 1/9, 9 over 6, and 1 and 2/3. A lot of people had 3/4 over here, right? If you're downloading a movie, right, and it got all the way up to here in that loading bar, you cannot say that it's 3/4 done, so I marked it wrong, right? You need to have 3/4 greater than 1/2, but less than 5, 6. That's what I was looking for. That was a long explanation for that, I know, but that's one thing that we got to get through, right? We struggle a lot with number lines. This one will get a lot faster. So Ali read his book for 2 3/4 of an hour, right? 2 3/4 of an hour. Over 2 days this weekend. Hisham read his book for 5. Now this is where a lot of people made some mistakes. Half-hour blocks. So I put a little multiplication symbol there because he didn't do it 5 and a half an hour block. It's 5 half-hour blocks. And so the best way I've seen people answer this question is visually. So what they did is they drew it out. So they drew 5-hour blocks, right? And they shaded it in what they did. So they did 5 hours, but they did a half an hour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And so what they did is they turned this into an improper fraction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many of these blocks make up an entire hour? 2. All right? They did the same thing here. So we know it's out of 4, and we have 2 wholes and 3/4. 2 wholes, I'll shade it in red so it's a little more visual. 1 whole, 2 whole. Oh, pretend I didn't shade this one in. Pretend I didn't do that. This one's blank. That one's blank, all right? So you're gonna count out, again, your shaded in pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 over, how many pieces make up a whole? 4, right? So now you're gonna compare these two numbers. 11 over 4 and 5 over 2. We should know by now that we cannot compare these two numbers because until they have the same denominator. So we're going to multiply this by 2. Do not divide this by 2. We cannot divide odd numbers by 2. We might be tempted to, but you have to multiply this by 2. It's going to be 10 over 4. All right? Now looking at 11 over 4 or 10 over 4, 11 over 4 is greater than that. Right? So what I was looking for is some sort of representation, some sort of math, and an acknowledgement that Allie read longer. All right? Almost done. Almost done. Even though it doesn't feel that way. Okay. This weekend, Miss Shannon rode her bike for 7/4 a lap while it was still dark. Then, so let's write that down right away. So 7 out of 4. Okay? Then, 4/3 of a lap while the sun was up before it got windy. So 4 over 3. Right? And then the final hour, 60 minutes, while it was very windy, she only biked 1 and 1 over 2. Which phase did she bike the furthest? So make sure that you know that this is during the dark. This is during the sun. And this is during when it's windy. First of all, we cannot compare these unless they have the same denominator. We should know that, right? So we're going to convert this to an improper number. So you're going to multiply and add, right? It's going to equal 3 over 2. Then you're going to list out the multiples, okay? 4, 8, 12, 16, and we'll stop at 20. 3, 6, 9, 12. We have our first match, okay? So we're going to see if 2 can get there. Spoiler alert, it can. Okay? We have our lowest common denominator. We're going to have to multiply all these numbers by a value, and we determine that value by seeing what level is it, right? What sequence is it? So this is the first, the second, this is the third sequence to get to 12. So we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 12. It's going to be 21 over 4. This is 1, 2, 3. This is the fourth sequence. So we're going to multiply this by 4 and this by 4. That's going to equal 16 over 12. Right? We're going to multiply this by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Always count this first one as 1, right? By 6. And that's going to equal 18 over 12. All we have to do then is find what is the greatest numerator. And the greatest numerator is going to be 21 over 4. Okay? So it's going to be during the dark. All right? Looking for, oh, that shouldn't be 4. It's 21 over 12. Right? But what we're looking for is that you understand how to convert and how to compare, right? A lot of people drew images for this one. That's not really reliable because your images might be slightly off, and that actually got a lot of people to get this question wrong. All right, last two, almost done. All right, a taco delivery truck had 7 tacos to give away. The first thing we need to do when I see that, this is what I did personally, right, is you draw out your tacos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, each taco was split into 4 equal pieces. We have to break this into 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. All right? So you're gonna do that for every taco. I don't know when the last time I had a taco was. This feet seems like a long time ago. If you have any recommendations for Mexican food in UAE, let me know. All right? Sammy counted. Let me get a crayon. I think I'm stealing this from someone. Oh, that doesn't work. That's dead. Let's hope this blue one works. Okay. Sammy counted 12 pieces of taco already cut up. All right, so they're cutting up a taco. All right, so then they cut up 21 pieces. So you're going to count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21. All right? The remaining pieces will be made out of how many tacos? All you have to do now is count how many you have left. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out of, now your denominator is always how many pieces make up a whole, right? 7 out of 4, or 1 3/4 of a taco. Some people said that it'd be made out of 2 tacos. While that is, I could see why you would say that. You have to make sure that you're very clear that it was 1/3 of a taco, 1 3/4 of a taco, and then that gets rounded up to being 2. All right? That's your answer. Last one. Now this is an old PAT question. An improper fraction is represented on a number line below, right? On a number line below. So you have this number line. This is 1, but if this is 1, you should look at that bold and you should know that this then will be 2, right? This is before I even read the question. This will be 3, and this will be 4, meaning that this will be 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, 1/2. This is really what we're assessing, guys, is do you understand how to manipulate, right? Manipulate this, this number line and understand how it relates to each other. So then all you have to do is, you know that this equals something over 6. All you have to do is put in these values, and you need something that's close to 4 wholes, but not over. Well, 8 over 6 is going to be 3. This is going to be 3 and 2/6, right? This is going to be 3 and 5/6, and this is going to be 4 and 1/6. I know that just because I did the division, remember? Right, so you have your 6, you have your 25. How many times does that fit? It fits 4 times, right? That's 24. You have 1 remaining. Equals 4 and 1/6. All right? Now, which one of these is not quite, was less than 4, so that crosses that out, right? More than 3.5, right? Because we have 3.5. This is benchmark. This is 1/2. I know it doesn't look like it. Sorry about that. We have 1/2, right? And more than 1/2, well, this one's not more than 1/2. That one's not more than 1/2. So it could only be C.